1985 brought us Roger Moore's swan song. Veteran Bond director John Glenn pits 007 against two of his most ruthless foes yet, Max Zorin, Christopher Walken, and Mayday, Grace Jones, in arguably the most 80s Bond movie of them all, A View to a Kill.
Good evening, 003. The following is for your ears only and is classified above top secret by Her Majesty's Secret Service. Our contact with the We Can Make This Work, probably, podcast network intercepted an encrypted audio message regarding podcasters assembled. For this season, the podcast network is looking to recruit field operatives from around the world to reminisce about the Bond movies in a countdown to the latest film in the franchise, No Time to Die. Your primary objective is to infiltrate podcasters assembled by recording and uploading your submissions at probablywork.com, utilizing a two-way communications device with a built-in microphone, the latest from Q-Branch. For a full mission report, go to probablywork.com. We're all counting on you, 003.
Podcasters, assemble!
Hello, my name is Ben Thompson. I am from badassoftheweek.com.
Yo, this is Corey Torgeson from the upcoming podcast, The World is My Burrito.
This is Justin Aki, graphic designer and one half of Significant Otter Co.
This is Megan Aki, the other half of Significant Otter Co.
Eric Slater here from Epic Fails of History and Too Young for This Trek.
This is Troidal Power from the Power Playthroughs podcast.
Today we're reviewing
A View to a Kill.
A View to a Kill.
A View to a Kill is the 14th Bond movie. Roger Moore's final outing as 007 takes its title from Ian Fleming's short story, From A View to a Kill.
1985's A View to a Kill. It's going to be one of those.
So, I totally forgot Christopher Walken was in this, and I'm pretty hyped.
By this movie, I'm kind of over Roger Moore.
This movie marks the end of the Roger Moore's Bond series, and it goes out with an okay?
At this point, he doesn't really look old. He just acts old.
Listen, Bond, it's a view to a kill.
I love A View to a Kill. I am not ashamed to admit it.
I've seen this movie a lot, not as much as Octopussy, but I always thought it was zany enough.
So, A View to a Kill is Roger Moore's final James Bond movie. It is also his least favorite one, and it is also universally the most despised and hated of all of the James Bond movies.
On this watch through, so close to the others, it still holds up, but only so. The end of this version of M and Moneypenny was disheartening. It just ends for them. At least we got Q coming back, but yeah, I wish this movie just wasn't so out there.
It has by far the lowest rating on Rotten Tomatoes at 37%, and it is generally accepted by all fans of James Bond as being the bad one, the worst one.
A majority of this movie, he's just holding on to things like ropes or horse or mine shafts. Doesn't do much of the physical stuff. I would leave that to people like Mayday and her little Charlie's Angels crew there. But he's just more of the fading out James Bond, and you can really tell.
That being said, I think it's a fun romp with some dark moments. The villain is a certified psychopath. The main Bond girl has no chemistry with Bond. And the movie drags on in some parts that are normally just skipped over.
This Bond movie, it's not great. It might not even be good. But I love it. There's something about it that's just absolutely charming to me, and it's probably my favorite of the Roger Moore era.
Is it as bad as they say? Well, yeah, but let's find out why.
Is this the first movie to start with a disclaimer about who is and isn't real?
It's weird before it even starts. The first thing that pops up on the screen is this little disclaimer that says the name Zorin is not meant to portray any real companies or people or any of this kind of stuff. And you're like, what is going on with this? Apparently that was not originally part of the theatrical release, but around the time that this movie came out, there was also a fashion design company named Zorin, and they had to throw this little disclaimer in there to be like, yeah, these fashion design guys don't actually have some weird and nebulous plan to destroy Silicon Valley somehow.
I guess that means all of the people in all of the other movies were, in fact, very real.
The movie opens with Bond on a mission to Siberia to grab a stolen microchip from a very dead 003 popsicle.
This movie starts off kind of intense, kind of serious. James Bond is up in the mountains somewhere, in the snow.
So we open in Siberia with dudes skiing, and immediately you're thinking, like, what are they going to do with Roger Moore on skis that hasn't already been done before?
Funny enough, the music playing around here reminds me of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I looked it up, and it turns out it was modified from that movie. It worked here.
And he finds an agent. He's got a little tracking device looking for a fellow agent who's dead in the snow and frozen solid.
There's some Russians in a helicopter. James Bond skis down. He finds a person we later find out is a dead 00 agent. He uses what I suspect is an avalanche beacon detector to try to find the body of the guy under the snow. This is a real thing. You use it to, like, dig people out of avalanches. Mostly, once you're buried in an avalanche, you have like 4 or 5 minutes before you suffocate to death. But, like, having one of these little beacons and a locator on one of your friends just kind of makes you feel better about yourself when you go out and do really dangerous ski shit.
And he gets a little something off that agent hidden in a locket.
Bond finds the mulligan, gets discovered by a guy who creates a small avalanche, and then has a pretty big fall, which cannot be good for the knees.
Bond escapes, breaking a ski in the process, and having a snowboard?
And then, oh no, Soviets, and we go into a ski chase down the side of a mountain.
So James Bond gets the beacon, and he's immediately attacked by all of the Russians that are swarming around him everywhere. He drops a crevasse, he drops a pretty solid ski face, he outskis a helicopter, jacks a dude's snowmobile, gets that snowmobile blown up, and then snowboards down on the snowmobile ski.
So it's snowboarding time.
He nollies off of a couple Russians' faces, drops down another cliff face, and the chase is on.
It's some good classic Bond stuff. We've seen Bond skiing down a mountain a couple times, but what happens in this one? Oh no, his skis, they're broken or something. They're all gone. But there was a snowmobile chasing me, blew that up real good, and it left just the front rudder of the snowmobile behind.
Did Bond just invent snowboarding?
So the snowboarding itself is actually pretty decent. It's all stuff that, like, wouldn't make it onto a ski video these days, but it's probably stuff that you can't do, right? Skiing across that lake is pretty cool. Some of the stuff he does, some of the phases he drops are pretty good. Also, it's one of the first times that movies have had any kind of snowboarding in it. And the stunt double for this section was actually a guy named Thomas Sims, and he's the guy who invented the snowboard. So they got the guy who invented the snowboard to do a bunch of snowboard tricks for a James Bond movie, which I think is pretty cool. Weirdly, music starts playing in the middle of this chase, and for the first, like, 4 or 5 notes, I thought it was going to be Back in the USSR by the Beatles, which I was like, perfect, this is great. But it's not that. It's a different surf rocky kind of thing.
In case you had any kind of doubt of what kind of movie you were getting into, this cold open starts with a Beach Boys song.
Good. We got the Beach Boys soundtrack playing now. That's exactly what I want in a spy thriller.
And for some damn reason, the movie producers started playing the Beach Boys.
And it's so dumb that James Bond goes snowboarding on the front rudder of a snowmobile, but it's also very, very, very good. And it's even better because the Beach Boys are playing during it.
Really?
Yep. This is a Roger Moore movie.
And it is California Girls by the Beach Boys.
And why not have the Beach Boys soundtrack if you're just going to be surfing in this movie?
And this doesn't make sense. This sets the tone for the rest of the movie because nothing about this makes sense. In a vacuum, this seems like it could be cool. James Bond skiing away from, like, Russians and, like, doing kickflips off dudes' faces while there's, like, surf rock playing. But California Girls doesn't work here because there's no girls in this scene, and there's no Americans in this scene, and there's certainly not any Californians in this scene. So none of this really makes any sense. And it's, like, not like there's a ton of snowboarding in Southern California either, right? All the snowboarding in California is in Mammoth or Lake Tahoe, and that's not what the Beach Boys are singing about. None of this works. It's all weird.
And with this helicopter crash, we now have evidence that Bond is in fact the cause of the polar ice caps melting.
So Bond gets down the mountain, and there's an iceberg there. But naturally it's a submarine, and naturally it's a sex submarine full of a sexy spy who's his sex accomplice, and they're going to have sex in their submarine.
The iceberg submarine is perhaps both the best and the dumbest vehicle in the franchise's history.
Well, they take the microchip that he recovered from the dead agent back to London.
Bond gets on the iceberg ship and then shows that he saved the microchip by pulling out the locket that it was in the first place. You'd think they'd have a more secure means of transporting valuable electronics than personal lockets.
Anyway, Bond ends up in an iceberg submarine with a hot agent, and they spend 5 days getting back to friendly territory.
Sexy time.
There, end of the movie. Bond is on a boat with a girl.
This movie, it's like, hey, Bond in a boat with a girl in the intro this time.
Bond blows the helicopter up with a smoke flare, and then escapes in a camouflage sex submarine that's shaped like an iceberg and also shaped like a dick. It's crewed by the most 80s woman ever, and it leads into the most 80s James Bond intro song ever.
We cut to the second best opening music so far.
Duran Duran.
Okay, I don't care what anyone says. Duran Duran is awesome.
I am a sucker for Duran Duran.
The song on this one, Duran Duran, with a view to a kill.
This song is amazing.
I still don't like the music as a Bond theme.
It's Duran Duran. It sounds like a Duran Duran song. It doesn't really sound like a James Bond song.
But it is so much more amped up than many of the themes we've had thus far.
But that's not the worst thing in the world. It's pretty fun.
This title sequence is amazing.
But the visuals in this music video are something else, because it's a lot of naked women skiing with black light lit tassels covering their nether bits.
And this is a notably better visual intro.
We get A View to a Kill by Duran Duran. It is the only James Bond intro song to make #1 on the charts in the United States, because of course it is. It was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song, if you can believe that. It's fine. It's 1985, and there's nothing about this intro that doesn't just beat you over the head with the fact that this movie was made in 1985.
This is the most 80s thing ever.
The credits are fine, but damn, this song slaps.
I love the black lights and the body paint and the crazy hair and the dancing into the fire.
I think my wife hates it.
It's just, it looks really good. It's a lot of black light. It's kind of cool looking. It's all about skiing, which has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's just the intro has skiing in it. But I guess they did that back with Moonraker, where it was all about the circus after Jaws crashed into the circus. Really, Octopussy should have been the one that was all about the circus, because the circus is a big thing in that one. But I digress. We got skiing in this one.
But I love me some 80s music.
Did I mention Duran Duran?
And Duran Duran was at the top of the charts for me.
I actually think this whole title sequence is probably the best part of the movie.
Even the song is just like forgettable 80s whatever.
That Duran Duran song is awesome. We still see Bond putting his hat on the hat rack outside of M's office, but he doesn't really wear hats anymore. We haven't seen Bond wear a hat since Sean Connery. And I sort of feel like they should have him wear one of those, hipster golf hats.
We get our standard briefing scene back in M's office. Moneypenny's there. No sign of, Penelope Smallbone, I think was her name from the last movie. She's just gone.
Finally, Bond is going over the mission with M and Q.
We see Q messing around with his new robot dog.
This remote-controlled robot that Q has sure looks a lot like K9 from Doctor Who.
And Q has the K9 from Doctor Who series, just being a dumb robot.
But Q is here, and he's building himself a K9 robot, just like in Doctor Who. I guess Q's a fan.
He looks so excited.
Which makes sense. I mean, this era of Britain, yeah, of course he's a fan of Doctor Who.
And then Q explains microchips to the audience.
And they find out that the chip that Bond brought back is basically a microchip that is EMP proof.
We get the briefing scene where James Bond is told that the chip that was taken from the dead 00 agent is resistant to magnetic pulse attacks. And this might be the first time of what will soon be a billion times where people explain what EMP is in a movie. But we can let it pass because it's 1985 here and probably nobody's heard of a magnetic pulse in any capacity.
And that's a big deal. Like, it's a computer microchip that can't be taken out by an EMP, and oh my gosh, the Russians are getting them, and apparently they're getting them in collaboration with some company named Zorin Industries, run by Max Zorin.
We get a quick overview of Zorin Industries.
So Bond is told that both of these chips are made by the Zorin company. So clearly he must be sending chips to the United States and also to the Soviet Union.
Hey, we gotta check this out. We gotta find out what's going on with this guy.
Turns out, Zorin Industries had a stolen product or something, and Bond has to go investigate the theft of the chip. So this is basically like Moonraker. But this time Bond goes undercover with a horse trainer and MI6 agent, Sir Godfrey.
Bond suggests, hey, maybe we should, investigate this guy? And the minister is like, no, impossible. This guy's a rich industrialist. He makes a lot of money. There's no way he could be evil. And Roger Moore does a great bit here when you hear that line. He looks at M. He almost spikes the camera. He looks at M and just rolls his eyes. He's like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before. And it's great.
So Bond and M and Q and Moneypenny all head out to a horse race.
They start off by doing an office party at the horse track, where Bond wins by betting on the rigged horse and giving his ticket to My Fair Moneypenny.
Because billionaire French industrialist Max Zorin, aka Christopher Walken, is also a racehorse owner. There's probably a word for that. I don't know what it is.
So the bad guy, it turns out, is Christopher Walken. He's a blonde here, and at the time of this being filmed, he was the first Academy Award winner to appear in a James Bond movie. He'd won the Academy Award a few years earlier for The Deer Hunter.
Christopher Walken is a good Bond villain.
Walken is great in this. This movie is not good, but Walken is not the problem with it. He is great, and he does a really good job of differentiating himself from other Bond villains that we've seen before, right? We've all seen this. We've seen this multi-millionaire, evil genius with a lair and all this stuff. We've seen this all in basically every Roger Moore movie to date. And he plays it very differently than they have, right? He's not this big, sinister, imposing guy. He's just psycho, and he's enjoying it, right? He's laughing, he's cracking jokes, he thinks stuff's funny when it's really messed up.
For reasons that are entirely unclear to me, they make a point when they're describing how brilliant Max Zorin is, of saying that he speaks at least 5 languages with no accent. And he's played by Christopher Walken, who has an accent all of his own.
I always like my Bond villains to be super rich industrialists who speak 5 languages, and are secret Nazi experiments working for the Russians.
I like the way that he plays this character because he's always having a good time. He's always being funny. He has his weird Christopher Walken-isms, but he's not a guy that we've seen before in this role, even though it's like a character that we've seen 1,000 times already.
We're also introduced to Grace Jones as Mayday.
Zorin's girlfriend is Zula from Conan the Destroyer. There is no way Bond lives through this. There is no way anyone lives through this.
Bond flies to France, Death by Butterfly, there's an Eiffel Tower chase, and Mayday parachutes off the Eiffel Tower, which is pretty badass.
Bond then goes to Paris and meets with an equally lecherous French guy, but that guy's murdered during a daytime showing at the top of an Eiffel Tower by a fishing lord to the neck.
So Bond goes to Paris to find out more about this guy, and happens to meet up with a guy who knows a bit about Max Zorin.
James Bond is watching some weird, butterfly show, and somebody sneaks in dressed in all black, and it's Grace Jones because, there probably aren't, that many, 6 foot tall, super athletic black women in the James Bond universe, so it seems pretty obvious from the beginning that this is who this is going to be. James Bond doesn't pick up on it for some reason because he's not an awesome spy in this movie.
At a restaurant inside the Eiffel Tower at the exact same time that Max Zorin's bodyguard / personal assassin, Mayday, played by Grace Jones, is there to murder the guy. That's convenient timing, but I gotta talk about how this guy dies.
But she kills a dude with a fishing lure, she beats up James Bond with a rod and reel, and then she base jumps off the Eiffel Tower.
So Bond notices that there's some shady business going on with the little butterfly on the fishing pole people, and doesn't really do anything, and then just kind of lets this French guy die.
Because they're at this restaurant in the Eiffel Tower, which doesn't exist, I don't believe, and there's a performance being done of somebody who does a dance with butterflies, and the way that Mayday kills the guy is by having a butterfly on a string with like a fish hook on the end of it, and she slams it into the guy's throat hard enough that he dies instantly, which is intense.
Good job.
Bond chases the murderer up the tower, but the assassin jumps off at the midpoint and escapes via parachute.
Then Bond chases her up the Eiffel Tower, and she parachutes off the Eiffel Tower.
Funny enough, one of the first parachutes was tested by jumping off the Eiffel Tower. That guy died.
That scene is pretty awesome. A dude actually jumped off the Eiffel Tower for that. And it's a funny story because the stunt guys, there was 2 stunt teams that were going to do this. And the first stunt team went, and the filming crew just got all the perfect shots. They were like, that was perfect. Everything went perfectly. We got it all done. It's amazing. We don't have to do the second jump. And the second team was a different group of stunt guys, and they really wanted to get up and jump off the Eiffel Tower. So they went up when they were scheduled to, and they did the jump anyway, unauthorized. And they got arrested, and like they got thrown off the movie because they almost got the entire production canceled. But they were just like, no, we're going off the Eiffel Tower. I am not gonna come all the way here and pack my parachute and not jump off the friggin' Eiffel Tower.
So he hops on an elevator to get down, and he's like, I gotta chase after that parachute. Hey, taxi driver, follow that parachute.
Bond somehow gets to the street level pretty quickly, and follows a gliding escapist in a stolen taxi. Side note, I love that the taxi driver is taking his lunch in a car with like a glass of wine. That's a very French stereotype.
We get a great, if nonsensical, Bond car chase.
I am now 100% convinced that there really was a board meeting about small car chase scenes.
And the taxi cab's like, no, can't do, boss, I'm eating lunch, except in French. And so Bond steals the cab.
We are in France. Bond stole a French car from a French guy, and the French guy keeps screaming, "Oh my car," in English.
And gets into a chase scene where he does everything.
Honestly, the taxi takes a solid beating. It goes to 4-wheel drive completely. Oh, side note, except for the Rolls Royce and a little bit, all the cars in this movie sucked. We get some craptacular mid-level Chevys and Renaults like grocery getters. I think I saw a Land Rover in the background at one point, but don't hold me to it.
He takes this little crummy cabby car off of a ramp. He drives it on top of a bus. He drives it under a toll booth, which causes the top of it to get ripped off, so it's a convertible.
The chase sequence is pretty good. I really like this car chase through Paris. James Bond is doing one of the most dangerous things we've ever seen James Bond do, which is drive through the city of Paris, which is outside of Cairo, the most insane traffic I've ever seen in my entire life. People just pretty much always drive like James Bond is driving in this movie.
He gets in a T-bone collision at an intersection, which causes the back half of the car to conveniently break off, so then just the front half of the car with no top is driving down the road in Paris, and James Bond is driving it, and this is what constitutes chase scene in A View to a Kill.
He's going up on the sidewalks, his car gets cut in half, he loses the roof, like he's jumping over buses.
You know, I was totally on board until that car got cut in half.
All the cars in this movie sucked, like, big time. It's like the production crew went to the car rental place and like, oi, how many cars can I get for 1,500 quid? And they got basic beaters. The exception is Albert Broccoli's 1962 Rolls Royce. That was just pretty. And yes, Albert Broccoli, the producer of James Bond, that was his personal Rolls Royce.
So this Renault 11 might be my favorite Bond vehicle from any Bond movie. Just name it. And not the whole car. I'm talking about the front of the Renault, because This is amazing. That thing just keeps on going.
He leaps off, and he's chasing a person who's parachuting down, right? So Grace Jones is parachuting down, and he's trying to chase her. He's trying to look up while he's trying to dodge cars and stuff. He keeps bumping into stuff. He keeps getting, like, pieces of his car breaking off.
This is the most badass vehicle that Bond has operated thus far.
He ends up jumping off of a ramp onto the back of a boat. Grace Jones' parachute lands on that boat. They're chasing each other around the boat, but Grace Jones gets away in a speedboat piloted by Christopher Walken.
Bond catches up to the assassin by crashing and ruining a wedding on the boat and the sign. But they get away, and turns out the bad guy was Mayday, Zorin's right-hand woman, and Zorin drives them away in their own boat, which, by the way, this reckless scene was terrible for Zorin. If anyone saw him, it would ruin the plan completely. Why would you risk yourself, Max? You have henchmen for this stuff.
This scene is great. I don't have any problem with it.
Bond costs a lot of money in this chase scene. He gets chastised for it because he doesn't even catch the woman. He's apparently on like a most wanted list in France now. That's pretty good. M's like, hey, can you just rein it in? Can you not cause such wanton public destruction all the time everywhere you go, James Bond? And he's like, sure thing, M. We definitely won't do that later in this movie. Stay tuned.
One of the big knocks on this movie, and Roger Moore himself has said it, which is that, like, oh, I'm too old to be James Bond, right? He's 57 when this movie comes out, and it's weird, though, because this is, for me, it's back in the day when, like, these guys, like, Roger Moore looked 57 when he was, like, 34, right? Like, these guys just look the same. They look like they don't age. I don't have a problem with him being older in this movie. He doesn't look significantly older than he does in any other James Bond movie, really. You get a little bit of that, like, Captain Kirk in the original series thing where it's very obvious where the stunt double inserts are. But I don't think the problem here is Roger Moore's age or his acting or any of those things. I think he is fine in this movie. The problem with this movie is that I don't have any clue what is happening at any moment and why, and I don't care about any of it. None of this story makes any sense, and they don't try to have it make any sense, and I never understand why we're going to these places or what we're doing. Not even something as simple as like, oh, I gotta follow this lead. We're at a horse race, and then we're in Paris, and then there's a parachute, and then we're in San Francisco, and I do not understand the most basic idea of what this guy is trying to do at the beginning of the story and at any point throughout the story. That will be a recurring thing. That is the problem with this movie, is that it is completely directionless and it makes no attempt to explain what the hell is happening.
And there's this entire like subplot about horses on steroids. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I'm not sure what the stuff with the horse had to do with the villain's plot or the end of the movie.
Bond decides to crash Zorin's party by pretending to be a horse breeder, James St. John Smiley. That reminds me of the character Nigel Smallfaucet from Never Say Never Again. The fake names in this movie make no sense at all. Why? Q Branch had to make fake documents with that name and everything. That's just terrible.
So now we go to Max Zorin's horse breeding estate where he's having a big auction.
Anyway, the draw is that Zorin's fake winning horse has a brother, and they are selling the brother and other stabled horses. The big horse is selling for $3 million, which is $7,321,196.58 in today's money. That's an expensive horse. They're even putting up the bidders and spying on them at night, which is genius.
My favorite gadget of this one is the electric razor that searches for bugs in the hotel room. And they don't really dwell on it much. There's barely even a Q branch in this. There's like one robot dog that is only used for a gag at the end of the movie. No cool gadgets, none of that kind of stuff. But when Bond moves into his hotel room at Zorin's place, he's got an electric razor, but it actually searches for bugs, which is cool. I like that.
Are those horse statues supposed to be the horses for sale? That is like a huge expense.
Oh, I can point out how much I hated the French dresses, the help. They're in full wigs and everything. It's so terrible. This is how the producers think poor people see rich people, I think.
I really, really ought to go see Bond's suit maker, because any suit that you could just wipe the cake off of, that is a suit worth owning.
Anyway, Bond has a fake cassette thing rigged up to show he's a horrible boss, which is great. They did that in like Live and Let Die. He and Tibbet plan out the upcoming spy stuff away from listening ears. We cut to the party in progress where Bond passes by his first wife. That's a bad joke. And Bond uses the day's technology to see through glass, polarized lenses into sunglasses. Yes, folks, the pinnacle of technology, adjustable transition lenses. He goes into the room after a meeting between Zorn and some blonde chick, and uses a credit card reader carbon copy maker to make a copy of the check thing, because that was the height of technology.
Why is that guy wearing a monocle, and when does he take it off? That cannot be comfortable.
Bond is then interrupted by the Crypt Keeper, who totally isn't/wasn't a Nazi. Oh wait, he was.
Monocle. Oh my god, so annoying.
He also meets a Texan in France.
Ah, the flute music. The Duran Duran flute music. Ah, that's a nice touch.
We meet Tanya Roberts. She was the female lead in Beastmaster, which is a movie from the 80s that I thought was awesome. It doesn't hold up as well as I would like for it to. She was also Sheena, Queen of the Desert, but we know her best as Donna's mom from that 70s show. She's going to be the Bond girl for this one.
And he eventually meets the girl, introducing himself with that ridiculous name.
Jenny Flex. Her name is Jenny Flex.
Before head bitch in charge Mayday shoos him along.
Grace Jones cockblocks Bond, then gives him one of the great death stares in cinema history when he attempts to flirt with her. She will eventually sleep with him later in a very weird and problematic scene, but for now, for this moment, it's pretty awesome.
And so James Bond goes undercover as a Mr. St. John Smythe, which they say like 73 times. I don't know if St. John Smythe is some sort of a joke in the UK, or if it just sounds funny, so they say it over and over again.
Christopher Walken looks so young in this movie. I'm happiest in the saddle, he says.
They originally asked David Bowie to be the role of Zorn for this movie, and he said no and took Labyrinth, which was a good idea. He said it was due to acting commitments. He later said it was because the script was total garbage, which makes sense. I don't know what that would have looked like, and I like the idea that Christopher Walken ended up playing a character that was meant and written for David Bowie. There's something about that just seems beautiful, and it's like a lot of things with this movie where on paper that sounds friggin' rad, and in practice it just did not turn out the way that you would hope it would turn out.
But while he's here, he does a bunch of sneaking around. He's got a buddy with him. He dies. Don't worry about it. They do a bunch of sneaking around. They beat up a whole bunch of guards.
James and Tibbet sneak into the horse barn, finding the cheating stuff, which is like steroids or something. Apparently there's a microchip shortage. They never bring that up again. Oh, Bond uses a stethoscope to break into a safe. In the other movies, he had like $30,000 worth of gadgets. This time he just acts like a thief. You couldn't have done that for the last 13 movies, Bond?
There's like this top secret lab under the horse stables?
Bond and the other agent are in the secret horse lair. They cut to the security guys, whose only means of observation is audio. I get that you might only have audio in the bedrooms, but why are you not observing your secret lair by video? This franchise has already established that people observe everything by video, even if it's under the water.
And Zoran's microchip factory.
James Bond fought a bunch of guards. So did he kill those guards? I guess he must have killed those guards, because otherwise having sex with Mayday wouldn't protect his identity.
Bond takes care of both of the bad guys who came to the lair to stop them and says the line, "Don't worry, it's all wrapped up." And I realize that this movie has had some of the best and most frequent one-liners from Moore in the entire franchise. They're still not good, but this is a good way to go out.
We see Mayday sparring with Max.
Anyway, they sneak back, but Max and Mayday are having a sexy karate session that gets broken up for Zorn to investigate.
And like 2 seconds later, Bond's in Mayday's bed.
And then James Bond needs to, disguise the fact that he's been sneaking out of his room at night, so he has sex with Mayday.
That's pretty presumptuous.
Who knows that this guy's sneaking around at night? She's sure of it, but she's like, well, I'll go ahead and bang him anyway.
And Bond isn't in his bedroom. But don't worry, he's in Mayday's bed instead. Rosie Carver, she is not.
It's almost like this version of Bond is like aware he's in a Bond movie.